The most dangerous favela of Rio de Janeiro. In Rio de Janeiro, it is common to see numerous favelas, each with an architectural signature of box-shaped, flat-roofed makeshift homes, stacked upon each other on the hillside. In poorer areas, especially in the north of Rio and indeed the north of the country, the housing tends to be more frayed at the seams. Favela growth reached a peak in the 1970s when many people moved from the countryside to the cities to take advantage of the economic growth of the country. Many, having no place to live and little money, moved into favelas. Favelas nowadays. 11 million or 6% of the 190 million people living in Brazil lived in favelas, highlighting the enormous divergence between rich and poor. There was and continues to be a movement to refer to favelas as communities. Whilst this is gaining commonality and is polite to say this in conversation with residents from there, they are still referred to as favelas for easy identification. In Rio de Janeiro, there are approximately 600 favelas. The largest and one of the safest favelas is Rocinha, ironically meaning little farm, located in the south zone of Rio and supports a population of 70,000 people. Rocinha is the #1 favela for the increasingly popular tourist tours that take tourists around the favelas in a jeep to see favela life, seeing how people live and interacting with locals. This has been met with mixed opinions. Some claim it adds to a positive impression of favelas and brings money to the area, others argue the ethics of it. A favela tends to be ruled by drug traffickers or organized crime groups that set the rules and run the joint. The residents are protected by the drug lords in terms of local robberies, yet violence between rival gangs is high. Drug lords in favelas are often incredibly rich, yet remain in their favela, since leaving is too risky for attracting police attention. Many favelas in Rio, however, are occupied by UPPs or pacifying police units. UPPs. UPPs manage favelas through their law enforcement and social services program with the aim of reclaiming land controlled by drug traffickers and crime groups. All the favelas in the south of Rio are controlled by UPPs, which brings relative peace to the area. Some of the key favelas with significant violence in the north are also controlled by UPPs, however, many are not, as drug dealing, gunfights, and drug lord control continues in force. These remain out of tourist areas so don't pose any risk to tourists in Rio. The arrival of the UPPs was not met with open arms. In November 2010 a security crisis was recognized in Rio, with criminal gangs attacking the UPP efforts. With a counterattack from the BOPI, Special Police Operations Battalion, the army and the police, eventually, the UPP gained control. Drug lords were either killed during the struggle or arrested in their house. Many with jacuzzis and luxury items were confiscated. Rio's most dangerous favelas. People will be excused for thinking that City of God is the most dangerous favela if they base their opinion on the famous and popular film of the same name. Whilst that may have had some truth in the past, nowadays it is much calmer there. Even though it is not officially recognized as a neighborhood, the Vila Cruzeiro in Rio is probably the most dangerous one. One of the centers of the notorious drug trading business of Brazil, the region is guarded by children with rifles, and tourists almost never venture here. These underage soldiers often want to leave the drug trade, as many of them die before they reach the age of 21. Even though the government started programs to re-educate the youth and help them aim for a better life, the years of neglect have done enough damage to make it almost impossible. Grenades, guns, poverty, are the elements that characterize this region. This favela in Rio de Janeiro has been around for about 50 years, and even though it's on the path to changing the way it's perceived, the violence here still puts it high up on the list of the most dangerous favelas in Rio. At the beginning of 2020, the police seized over 450 pounds of drugs. Gunshots, burning cars, and police helicopters were part of the dreadful scene. In November the favela was shaken again by the confrontations between the military and the drug cartel, leaving a few people dead or wounded. Tourists are advised to avoid this area at all costs. Even if the favela is a center of drug activity, some organizations have tried to bring a ray of sunshine here. Art is a big deal for the youth of Vila Cruzeiro, which can be seen in the beautiful and unique street art on walls and houses, encouraged by the associations helping them. Vila Cruzeiro Shootout. The Vila Cruzeiro shootout took place on May 24, 2022 in the favela of the same name in Rio de Janeiro, during a joint operation by the Special Police Operations Battalion, BOPE. The Federal Police and the Federal Highway Police that resulted in at least 26 people killed by gunshots or cutting objects. It was the second most lethal police operation in the city of Rio de Janeiro, second only to the Chacina do Jacarezinho, which occurred a year earlier. According to BOPE, the operation aimed to arrest more than 50 traffickers from the Comando Vermelho from various states who were heading to Rocinha Favela. The undercover police team was discovered around 4 p.m. and the military police carried out an emergency operation involving 80 officers and 26 members of the Federal Highway Police. The shootout dragged on for hours until it reached the woods of Serra da Misericordia, which connects Vila Cruzeiro to Complexo do Alemão, where most of the victims were shot. They seized 13 rifles, 12 grenades, 4 pistols, 10 cars and 20 motorbikes. The victims were transferred to Hospital Estadual Getúlio Vargas. The military police state that the faction is very active, responsible for 80% of the confrontations in Rio. Besides Rio de Janeiro, the victims also came from other states, such as Alagoas, Bahia, Ceará, Rio Grande do Norte, Amazonas, and Pará. The operation took place during the term of Governor Claudio Castro. In just 1 year, 39 massacres occurred in the state, leaving 182 dead. Only in the region where the operation took place, 4 massacres occurred in 1 year, leaving 42 dead. Final thoughts. Most middle or upper class Brazilians will warn you off from visiting favelas. They're too dangerous, they'll tell you. It's too risky. All these pose a threat to visitors, first, because people here don't trust outsiders. Anyone could be suspected of working for the police. Second, visitors could end up trapped in gunfights. There have been cases of tourists who lost their lives by venturing into a favela with a bad reputation. It is recommended to visit the favelas only with a local guide who knows people around, and this way he can protect you and keep you safe.